basically refers to different approaches to certain issues. The labels were unknown until some period of time after the time of the prophet. I'm saying that, well, at least 250 years before people were using these kinds of things. And Shia just came from an Arabic word that means party, like the Republican Party, that sort of thing. And it was kind of a nickname bestowed on people who claimed to historically belong to a certain party, loyal to a certain man. And others put the emphasis on saying the loyalty is not to a certain bloodline, but to a certain code of behavior. And that's basically the root meaning of sunnah, which has to do with characteristic behavior or habit patterns or whatever. And these two nicknames came about. One who said we want to follow the behavior of a certain group of people, and another who want to emphasize it's important that we remember the line of descent of people. And they're roughly divided 90% to 10% in figures. Some of the issues that divide them are much more important to a small group of people than they are to the bulk of individuals. That is, if you were to approach somebody to say, I take this position and I'm against the position you take, chances are he doesn't know about either one of those positions. It's like laymen trying to debate the matters that church councils take up. Usually they don't even know what it is they're talking about in the first place. But most of those issues are far removed from people. Or if they have an idea what those issues are, it may be some simplistic view of one or the other favorite thing that they've carried over. Hope that's helpful. Yes?
Yeah, I was just curious. How does a Muslim, how does he know he has eternal life? What does a Muslim believe once he dies back to sin?
Well, that's exactly what happens to him. There's all kinds of stories about that nobody really knows. Maybe death is as interesting as life. It's like saying, what's going to happen to this baby now that it's born? What's going to happen now that this man has died? It may be a very complicated thing too, but first part of what you're asking is, how does he know about where he stands? To look at it in this way, that the Quran says that on a final judgment, that the record of each man will be put in his hand. And he knows by that record what the decision is, what the verdict is. There's no surprises. It's not going to be a case where somebody looks over his record and he's thinking, this looks pretty close. I hope the judge is in a good mood today. Because this looks like this and that. It's going to be very clear by the record. So given that that is the case, anybody at any given moment should be able to stop and think, what if I died right now? Am I ready or not? The difference between that approach and the approach of some, at least, who would say, I know that my well-being is looked after, is that some of those would say that, say, I know I'm saved, and a week from tomorrow I'll still be saved. Whereas the Muslim may say, I'm ready to die now. A week from tomorrow, I don't ask me a week from tomorrow. That is, he knows what the situation is to now. There is a confidence there, which I guess the Muslim doesn't often talk about, but it ought to be there. There's a well-known story of one of the men of 14 centuries ago. He was about to be executed, in fact crucified, by the people in Mecca. Is it Khubayb, I'm thinking of? And the people who were about to kill him said, you can have a moment to make some prayers if you want. So he prayed very quickly, and then he came back. He said, I would have prayed longer, but you would think that I was stalling, and I was afraid, and I'm not. Let's get on with it. I shortened my prayer. So he was quite confident of what the situation was at that point. That's distinctly a possibility. It's just a matter of being honest with yourself to say, why have I done what it is I've done? What are my intentions? What brought me to here? Is it good or is it bad? That's something you know from the inside.
So how do you know things that you've done throughout your life, whether God thinks that they're good enough for Him? I'm saying, you appear before Him when you die. How do you know, because I've done this, I'm good enough? I mean,
yeah, it's not a question of precisely what is done. It's a question of intentions. That is, it said if a man made up his mind to do a good thing and he got up to leave the house to go and do it, but he fell and broke his neck and died, the credit is his as though he did it, because what matters is that he was of that frame of mind that he was intending to do that. Whereas If a man made up his mind to do a bad thing and he broke his neck on the way, he has committed no crime. It's too bad he was in that state of mind, but he has committed no crime. And in the third case, if a man made up his mind to do a bad thing and then he changed his mind, he has credit for changing his mind. See, that is, it's a matter of the intention. What is the frame of mind that you're in? Not necessarily the value of your acts. The good things that people do have a certain value, but they really don't add up to anything like the compensation that comes back. As the one verse says, the punishment that men receive is exactly equal to the wrong done, but the reward they receive is 10 times greater than any good they actually ever did. That's using the figure 10 apparently figuratively, just to say penalties correspond with crimes, but rewards are much greater than any particular good thing that was done.
Well, my point would be that how do you know that your intentions are good enough?
Well, it's a matter of being perfectly honest with yourself. That's all, and that takes practice. That's what...
Then where does the part of God come to kind of fit? How do you know that what you intend is good in His sight?
Well, it sounds like, and I'm not trying to make fun or anything, but that's a problem sometimes the psychologists talk about, the scruples. That is, people who are paranoid about their own motivation. That is, it is always good to ask yourself, why do I do this? And you've got to be honest with yourself. But you can drive yourself insane if you're continually trying to accuse yourself of wrongdoing. To think back, a memory flashes across my mind. Think, when I was 6 years old, I remember my mother picked me up. Was I sexually aroused? You know, that's mentally ill. But people can get into that state of mind if they're always doubting, what is my intention? It's good to, on a regular basis, ask yourself, why do I really want to do this thing? But if you're convinced that I'll never know, then you're losing your mind. If you're convinced you will never know your own mind, I think you've lost it.
The point I'm trying to make is that you will never know.
I disagree 100%. You are saying a man will never know his own intentions, and I'm saying that should be an easy thing to do.
You will never know.
Okay, then you have your opinion and I have mine. I think it's rather easy to know your own intentions.
I think I understand his question. I'm not going to reword it, but what I'm trying to think of is, if in comparison of two people, if your intention is to do one thing, to wear a coat and tie today because you think it's a good thing to do, and my intention was to not wear a coat and tie, because I didn't think it was, it was not necessary. In God's eyes, are your intentions better than mine, or in God's eyes, is each person's good intentions for that particular person? Is there a standard of good intentions, or does each person do the best they can do according to their own scruples?
Well, I suppose maybe what you're... That's a complex question in this sense that however I answer it, I'm agreeing with something you wrapped up in a question, which I disagree with. You've made it sound as though different people have different scruples, and that is basically what I disagree with. I'd say on the inside of every person is the same standard. The Quran says that men are made of one sort of thing. They have one kind of a nature, that is human nature. It doesn't, men are not produced in such a way that, well, some of them are a little more careful than others and so on. They get to be that way, but they didn't start out that way. They all have the same standards. If people develop different standards, it's precisely because of that. They have developed those different standards.
Yeah, that's the one. So you're saying that the essence of human would be a certain, across the board, everyone would have the same.
It should be the same.
Okay, and that I didn't hear you say that earlier, and that's why.
I didn't. That's my fault.
Okay.
Yes.
I really appreciate the way you presented yourself and your obvious intelligence and your competence in Scripture. And I appreciate the gentle approach that you've taken both toward Christians and toward Muslims. Do you believe that Muhammad taught that God gave the law to Moses?
See, it's like a lot of questions that are asked when you're put in the double bind of answer yes or no, that eliminates any qualification as to the terminology that's used. I say the law given to Moses. That he gave Moses a law, I have no doubt. Yes, that's the basic Muslim position. That he gave Moses the law, which you can pick up in the public library,